box crackles. It's one of the few modern things I keep. Runs on batteries. Sometimes, in the deep quiet, I like to hear a voice, even if it's a fool's. Tonight, the voice is panicked. Record-breaking blizzard warning in effect. Travel is impossible. Life-threatening conditions. I look through the one clear spot on the frozen glass. The wind is driving the snow sideways. It's a good storm. Maybe 2, 3 feet. Life-threatening. The words feel thin. People in the cities, they hear that, and they run. They buy all the milk and bread. They huddle by their electric fires and feel like they've braved something. They call this survival. I call it Tuesday. This is just weather. It's loud. It's inconvenient. But it's not a killer. Not really. It's not a season. It's not a true test. They think they know what winter is. They think they know what survival means. They've read the books and watched the shows. They don't know the silence. They don't know the hunger. This wind, it makes me remember. It makes me remember a winter that didn't just visit. It stayed. It settled on this land like a winding sheet, and it didn't leave for 6 months. A winter that buried the world. That was a winter that would kill them. It would kill them all, not because of the snow, but because of the time. You modern folk, you think in short bursts. Your survival is a weekend event, a 72-hour kit. You think about what you'd do if the power goes out for a night. You don't think about the long dark. You don't understand a winter so deep the snow doesn't just cover your cabin, it entombs it. A winter where the deer herds move 100 miles south, where the rabbits and the squirrels vanish, gone so deep into their burrows they are just a memory. You don't know what it is to run out of food in January and know, truly know, that there will be no more until April. That's the winter I remember, the one we called the long snow, or the hunger winter. It wasn't the cold that was the enemy. The cold is just a fact. You can dress for cold. You can build a fire. No, the enemies were the silence, the darkness, and the slow, crawling emptiness in your belly. That's what would kill you. Your mind would go first. Your body would just follow. You would be killed by the sheer crushing weight of the days. How did I survive it? I get asked that. It wasn't a secret tool. It wasn't a special kind of rifle. It wasn't grit, not the way you think of it. Grit is what you use to fight. You can't fight a season. I survived because I was willing to do what you are not. You are soft. Not just your bodies. Your minds are soft. You're used to comfort. You're used to light. You're used to choice. In that winter, there was no choice. There was only one rule: endure. The lesson is this: we would die because we would try to live normally. We would try to keep the whole cabin warm. We would try to eat meals. We would burn all our wood, eat all our food, and then when the real test began, we would be empty. We would sit in the dark and despair. I survived because I knew the rules. I knew that survival isn't about living, it's about not dying. I survived because I was willing to become an animal, to live like a bear in its den, to eat what you would call filth, to give up everything except the will to see the sun again. The snow started in October, a heavy, wet snow that broke the branches off the pines. It just never stopped. By December, the cabin was a cave. The windows were black. The snow was up to the roof. To get out, I had a tunnel, a chute I dug, going 20 feet up to the surface. But there was no reason to go out. There was nothing there. The world was gone. There was no sound, no birds, no squirrels, just the muffled whump of more snow landing on the roof. The silence was the worst, a thick, heavy, pressing silence that crawls inside your head. You start to hear things, the sound of your own blood, the whisper of your own thoughts, and they are not good company. I had food, smoked venison, dried berries, flour, beans, enough for a normal winter. But this wasn't normal. By mid-January, the venison was gone. The flour was a dusting in the bottom of the barrel. The beans, I was counting them. 50 beans a day. That's when the hunger starts, not the I missed lunch hunger. This is a living thing. It's a cold ache in your gut that never ever leaves. It's a weakness in your joints. It makes your vision blurry. It makes your thoughts slow and stupid. This is where you would die. You would panic. You would eat all the beans at once, and then you would have nothing. You would sit in the dark and wait for death. I knew the hunger was the real enemy. The cold was its friend, so I adapted. The first rule, waste nothing. I stopped trying to heat the cabin. It was a fool's errand. It was like trying to warm the whole forest. I took my canvas tarp and my extra buffalo hides, and I built a den, a small tent, right in the corner of the cabin next to the stone chimney, but not using the chimney. It was just a mound of fur and canvas, no bigger than a large bed. I lived in that den. I slept there. I ate there. The only heat was my own body and a single small lamp, a cup of bear grease with a rag for a wick. It gave off a smoky, foul-smelling light, just enough to see my hands. But it was heat. The rest of the cabin, the temperature inside, away from my den, was 20 below zero. Ice covered the inside of the walls. The second rule, everything is food. The beans ran out. I was weak. The hunger was a physical pain, a clawing in my stomach. I looked at my moccasins. You think I'm joking? I took a pair of deer-hide moccasins I had worn out. They were stiff with dirt and dried sweat. I put them in the pot with melted snow. I boiled them for a day, then another day. The cabin filled with the stink of wet, hot leather. The leather turned into a thick, gray jelly, a soup. I ate it. It tasted like glue and old socks. There was no nutrition in it, not like you think. But it was calories. It was gelatin. It was something to put in my belly. It was fuel. I had 3 beaver pelts, prime, thick pelts I was saving for trade. I scraped the fat from the inside of them. It was rancid. I rendered it down and drank it. It was like drinking hot sickness, but it was fat. It was life. I dug under the snow where I'd thrown the bones from the last deer I'd killed in the fall. I brought them inside. I broke them with my hatchet and boiled them for 3 days straight until the water was a cloudy, thin grease. I drank that. That is how I survived. Not by being strong, but by being willing. I ate my own boots while you would have starved to death looking at yours. The third rule, keep the mind sane. The darkness, the hunger, the cold, they work on you. They invite the madness in. You start to see things in the shadows. You start to believe the silence is talking to you. You are tempted, oh, so tempted, to just lie down, to just sleep, to let the cold take you. It would be so warm, so easy. I fought it. I worked. I sat in my dark, smoky den, and I worked. I restitched every seam on my parka with numb fingers. I sharpened my knife until the edge was a whisper. I took a piece of firewood And in the faint light I carved. I carved a spoon. I carved a small bird. It didn't matter what. It was discipline. It was a wall against the dark. It was the act of a man, not an animal. It was the one thing that kept my mind from cracking open. The Cree. They have a name for that madness. Wutakow. Wendigo. The stories the white men tell are of a monster, a tall, gaunt beast of ice and shadow that eats men. But the elders, they told me the truth. The Wutakow is not a monster that finds you. It's the monster you become. It is the hunger madness. It's the despair that grows in the long, starving dark of a winter like that. It's the thing that makes a man look at his brother, his family, and see meat. The discipline, the work, the rituals. That wasn't just to pass the time. That was medicine. It was the strong magic to keep the Wetakow outside the den, to keep the man inside. When I was boiling my moccasins, I was starving, but I was sane. I was holding on to the law. That is the difference. When the thaw finally came in April, when I dug my way out of that grave into a sun that felt like a blowtorch, I was not a man. I was a skeleton. I had lost maybe 50 pounds. I was weak, but I was alive, and I was sane. I listen to that box. I hear them talk about life-threatening conditions. They're talking about the man who leaves his warm car and freezes in a ditch. They're talking about the hiker with his energy bars and his GPS who makes one wrong turn and they find him in the spring. They die in 48 hours. Surrounded by resources they don't know how to use. They wouldn't last one day in the long snow. It's not their bodies that are weak. It's their imagination. They can't imagine eating their own boots. They can't imagine living in a dark hole for 3 months. They can't imagine a world without rescue. And so, they would die. They would die of disbelief. They would die because they are no longer desperate enough to live. They have traded the will to survive for the comfort of the now. I survived that winter because I was willing to live like an animal, so I could remain a man. They would die because they are just soft animals who have forgotten they have teeth.